Hello there everybody, thank you for joining me again today. I'm having a bit of a play on my lathe. I'm going to turn up a little goblet, so I thought I'd have a bit of fun. I hope you enjoy it. I've got it all chopped up in the lathe there, and going to start rounding it off just to get it started like, and then I'll turn the shape from there. Wood I'm using, it's a bit of wild cherry that I actually cut down myself, probably 20 years ago now. I've been keeping it around till I got around to using it. Unfortunately it had a bit of woodworm in it, so that's why I'm taking so much of it off to get rid of most of it then. The old gouge is soon gets rid of it. It's quite good fun hacking it off, where you have the shavings going everywhere. Like I said, I'm just sort of cleaning it up, getting it to a basic shape there. Using the smallest spindle gouge on the end grain there. Just want to sort of true that off a bit before I do much else there. Now I've squared the end off a bit, I'm putting a tailstock in just to give it a bit of support, because I've still got a bit of the old woodworm to get rid of, to clean it up a bit more. I want to get it on some decent wood. The old cherry or wild cherry's got a lovely grain structure. Can be quite hard as well, it's surprising. Well, the parent tool, I'm just defining the base a bit, then I know what wood I've got to work with, so I can do my design accordingly then. When I'm doing something like this, I tend to work the end bit down to roughly the size I want, and then once I've defined the bottom, I can then just go through and hack the rest of it off pretty quick like, to level it all out. Just feeling for the rough bit now, and so I want to get it so it's all fairly clean and good wood, and then I can work on the design then when I know what I've got. Now I've got my overall diameter, I can start hollow out the end then. Can be a bit tricky on end grain. Well, I guess you'll see it does grab a couple of times. But you sort of, you get to expect a certain amount of that. I shall take the biggest bit out with a spindle gouge, and then tidy up afterwards with various different scrapers. When I'm doing something like this, I tend to do the bowl, tend to hollow that out before I really work on the outside, because that gives you more wood to support it as you're doing the hollowing then, and then I shall work the outside of the bowl accordingly. I've not really got a exact plan in mind. I'm just sort of get it roughly where I want it, and then go from there. Like sort of a lot of these I tend to make it up as I'm going along, see what fits. I'm just tidying it up with this scraper now, and trying to refine the shape. There's get quite nice shavings coming off when you're using this. It gives you a fairly good finish to start with, or to finish with I should say. I find it can be tricky to get the bottom about right when you're hollowing. Especially that you end up with a little pip in the middle that can be a bit of a bugger to get rid of. But it all adds to the fun of it. I want to make it a little bit deeper than I had it, so that's why I've swapped back over to the gouge and get rid of more material with that. As you can see, I'm sort of drawing the scraper back from the middle to the outside and turning the handle as I go to keep a nice profile, and that way when you're cutting it, with it being end grain, you're cutting across the grain rather than digging. If you sort of push it, you're liable to break a grain out and it'll be a lot rougher. But I've on with the next stage now. I've got a plug of wood. It's an old bit machine with a slight curve on it. I've got that in the end of the bowl. Then I can put the tailstock on to help it support it. It's not over tight so it won't split it or anything, but it helps stop vibration. I've also, you can see the pencil mark there. That's where I've measured the inside of the bowl, the depth of it, and I've marked that on the outside so I don't machine the bowl off, because I've done that once or twice and that's rather annoying. I'm just with the parting gauge there, I'm working it down to a rough depth where I want the top of the stem to meet the bowl. I move down and again with the parting gauge I am sort of taking it down to a rough depth where I want the top of the base to come up, the sort of curve of the base to meet the stem. I do these slightly oversized because you can always take it off, it's not as easy to put it back on. It's just about giving me a basic outline and try to get the proportions into place, like, so you can then you can work your design off that. I tend to step it out and that gives me my limits what I can go to then. I'm starting now to refine the shape a bit. It's still at the moment it's just a cylinder of wood, but slowly work it down to what I want it to be. Just takes a bit of playing with. Going back to my spindle gouge now to work on the curve of the bowl. The tricky bit with this is you've got to sort of visualise what the inside of the bowl is like, so you don't cut the walls too thin. You sort of get used to doing it. A bit later on I will take a plug out and then I can feel what the bowl's like, because I like to get them reasonably thin, I don't like them too chunky. Just now getting rid of the bulk of the waste wood that's left in the middle. So I tend to work it down in sections, and then you know, you can, as I said, you can always take more off. It's not easy to put it back on, so I tend to take it a bit carefully on when I'm doing that, and then refine it a bit later on. As you can see, I'm refining the bowl shape a bit more. Now trying to define a bit of the bottom of the bowl and where it meets the stem. I like to have like a bead of sorts where it meets. Or that's what I've decided for this one anyway. What I try to do is try to take the bulk off from the end furthest away from the chuck, and then work down towards it, because then that cuts down on your vibration, and especially if you're doing a thin stem, it's less likely to split the stem then. I tend to use my spindle gauge to refine a lot of the shape, and then I finish it off with various other tools, but the spindle gauge gets rid of the material quite quick when you need it to, but you can also, by turning it, you can get quite a nice finish off of it. Again, refining that bead at the bottom of the bowl where it joins the stem. I sort of done most of it with a gouge and all, and now work over to the different scrapers. And as I said, if you angle the scraper, you can get a really good finish on it. It saves a lot on sanding. I don't like to sand the work too much. I like it to be from the tool. Work on the top of the base. Sometimes I struggle to get the shape, to refine the shape until later on when I see the rest of the goblet, how it turns out. So I tend to just to rough it to where I want it and then finish it off as I get near that end. Like, I've gone back to refining working a bit more on the bowl. I like to feel it. I'm not really putting any pressure on with my fingers when I do that. Just laying them lightly, and you can feel ridges, and it helps you to distinguish how good the curve feels. I use this scraper quite a bit. It's one of my favourites because you can alter the angle and all of the ends there. It makes it very universal, and you can turn it to whatever shape you're machining at the time. Here you can see where I've got the scraper all but on a 40-45 degree angle in some cases, and then it brings off a really fine shaving. Now I've got the bowl a bit more, and bowl and the bead a bit more like I want it. I'll start work on the stem now. I like to make a fairly fine stem, or narrow stem, when it meets the little bubble, or bead, or whatever you like to call it. so that's what I'm doing now, working it. Swap back over to me spindle gouge again. I said because it's just good for removing material. And with having working down like that, it gets a lot less vibration now for doing the stem. It just works quite well, and refining it as I go, like. You can see I've swapped to a different tool. This tool actually was my first ever lathe tool. It was one when I was a teenager. My old man, he got me a wood lathe when I got into it. I didn't have any tools, so this is one he made me up. It's along the lines of like a type of skew type end. Bit difficult to describe it, but I use it quite a bit. It's brilliant for detail work and all. It's I said it's my oldest one, but it's one I use on pretty much every project. It just works for me. They refined all the end now, and then pretty much got the stem pretty much as I want it for now. But I've left the block down the bottom. You'll see on the next video why I've left that where it is. It'll all become clear in the end, as I say. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully you'll come back for part 2 and see it finishes, because it comes out very nice. So thank you for watching, and I shall hopefully catch you on the next one. Oh, and if you could give it a thumbs up and a like, and perhaps subscribe, you would cheer me up now then. Thanks a lot. Bye bye now.